Hey friends, it's Marie and welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be playing with some Kindred stamps on my channel, and I'll have some more videos coming up featuring their stamps. Today I'm playing with their legendary set. So this is a set that I think a lot of us will appreciate. I remember my brothers kind of playing a game that this was inspired by way back when I was a kid. So when I saw this one come out, I was excited and I just had to grab it. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to stamp out my little images, my little characters. So I've got this little hero all stamped out here, and I'm going to color him with my Stylefile alcohol ink markers. I love these markers. They blend really well. They're a little bit cheaper than other brands, and I've got a handful of them, not a whole huge supply, but they work for me. So since this image is really detailed and kind of small, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on shading. I'm going to do a few simple colors, maybe a lighter color, darker color, but just kind of simply color it. Now I did speed this up quite a bit because the coloring takes a while, but you can see I'm just adding my color, my lighter color, and then my darker color to add a little bit of shading. I'm using a few different colors of green and just coloring him the way I think he should be colored. So I did look up some different photos of the inspiration person here to see the correct color combinations, make sure I got the right shield and sword on him. So I think that was really fun, but honestly you can color him any color you want. I think it would be kind of fun to change up the hair color. I've got a nephew who really likes this character and he likes to dress up like him, so it would be kind of fun to color him to look like my nephew, but I'm just sticking with the traditional colors right now because I really love this character and everything that it was inspired by, so I'm just sticking with the good old thing. So I'm just going ahead, coloring him out, really simple. The way I like to do my coloring is a light color, and then my mid-tone color, and then my darkest color for shading, and then I do like to go back and blend that all out with my lightest color. Like I said, I'm doing really simple coloring right now, so sometimes I even skipped that third color and just did two, and that really worked well. You could also stamp this out and color it with watercolors or colored pencils, anything you prefer. I do want to mention that I used my Brutus Monroe Raven Detail Black ink. Once that ink is dry, it is permanent. It will not smear. I do like to hit it with my heat tool for a few seconds after I stamp it out just to make sure it's dry. I forgot to do that with this little character, so I noticed when I was coloring around his eye it did smear a little bit because I stamped it out about 2 or 3 times. There was a lot of ink sitting on the top, and once I went over it with my markers, it did smear a little bit, but you can't really tell. I was careful to go around all the other areas and lines, and I think it turned out fine. So I hope you guys enjoy looking at my coloring. I didn't show coloring the other character because I don't know. Do you guys like sitting through coloring? Sometimes I do when I'm watching other people's videos, and sometimes I just like to get to the card. So let me know in the comments if you enjoy coloring or if you'd rather me just skip it. Let me know. Anyway, so our little character is all pretty much colored out here, all done. Here's a close-up look of that stamped and colored character. Now I went ahead and colored them both and cut them both out. I did fussy cut them, and they are ready to put on my card. So I'm going to build a background, and I'm doing that with this Tailored Expressions die. I love this die. I've used it on so many projects. There's so many things you can do with it, and it's just perfect for creating like a forest background. So what I've done here is I've taped the edges of an A2 size card. This forest die is slightly smaller, so you're going to have a little bit around the edges it's not going to color. So I taped the edges to make sure that that will remain white. And now I'm going to ink blend a forest scene. So I'm using yellows, I'm using greens, and I'm kind of adding some yellow to the bottom and the top, and I'm going to connect them in the middle, and it's just going to kind of look like light in the background. And now I'm coming in with some Mowed Lawn Green. This is a really bright green, inking up the edges and some of those other white spots. I also going to grab my grass stencil from Brutus Monroe and add a little bit of grass to the bottom. Now I did also speed this up because ink blending does take time. You want to make sure you just take your time, blend it all out, make it look great. So I did speed it up. Now there are 2 layers of grass on the bottom. I think adding extra layers gives it a little bit more dimension, makes it look a little more interesting. And then I'm just going to go ahead and keep blending out those greens. So I kind of do my ink blending the same way I do my coloring. I like to start with my lightest color, go to like a mid-tone color and then a dark color. And then if I need to hit any more areas, I'll do that with my lighter color or whatever color I think it needs. But ink blending does take a little bit of time. You want to keep working that ink into the paper, get it really saturated. And once you get a lot of ink on there, you're going to find that your ink is going to move a lot easier. You're going to be able to blend it a lot easier. So get a lot of ink on your paper. Don't be afraid of color. I've always done that in the past where I don't want to put a whole lot of color on my paper, but I have been working with ink blending a lot lately in my recent videos, and I'm really starting to love it again because I'm figuring out you put a lot of ink on there and it just blends together a lot better. So I want to make our forest background look even more magical. So I'm taking some liquid elements. This is the gilded liquid elements from Brutus Monroe and adding splatters. And if you guys watch my videos, you know I pretty much splatter this stuff on everything. I think it just works really great for everything. Now you can spray it directly onto your paper. You're going to get a lot more. You can take it and you can watercolor with it. There's a lot of fun things you can do with this gilded liquid elements, and I love it. It dries with some really shiny sparkly spots, and I just really like that. I think it looks like some sparkly magical little flecks in the background, and I think it just really adds to that enchanted forest kind of feel. So you could use this as your background. I'm going to take that forest dye and kind of change it up a little bit. I'm not going to leave it white, and I also don't want it to cover the whole background. So I'm taking a pencil and I'm marking out some trees that I want to get rid of. And I'm just marking them because when I go with my craft knife, I have done it before where I cut the wrong branches and I cut the wrong bases. So this time I'm just going to go with my little pencil, mark where I want to cut with my craft knife, and that will save me a little bit of headache and a few mistakes. So, you know what they say, measure twice, cut once. It's true. There's your tip for the day. So I'm just taking my craft knife and I'm cutting along those lines that I've lightly marked, cutting out some of these trees in the middle, and it's going to make more of a foresty frame instead of a full forest panel, if that makes sense. So I don't want to leave it just white. I don't want to leave it just plain. I want to get some wood grain texture on there and color these trees. I'm grabbing my Altenew wood grain background, and I'm actually going to just ink it up and then add my paper right to my background. I'm not even putting this on my MISTI. So I just have this background stamp right onto my craft mat, and I am putting some ground espresso distressed ink right onto there. And instead of stamping my stamp onto my paper, I'm just going to lay my paper on my stamp, cover it with a piece of scratch paper, and then rub it into that impression. I just find that this is easier with these large background stamps, especially the the clear ones, because the clear ones really stick to your MISTI door and they're hard to get off the backing paper, so they're not quite as easy to stamp out as red rubber ones, so I just find it easiest to leave it on their backing sheet and stamp my paper to the stamp. So I've done that with my trees, my forest, and I've ink blended over that to create a forest scene there. You could even do darker if you wanted the trees to be a little bit darker. I just think it really adds some interest to my background scene. So I'm going to add these characters on here, layer them on. I did want to add one more thing to this scene. I always liked in the game where you could go cut down grass and find rupees. So I thought we needed to add a little rupee to the grass. So what I'm going to do is just take a piece of scratch paper. I am adding some reds to it. I've got a really light color, almost a pink, and then a darker pink, and then a red. Just kind of going to blend those together in sort of a rupee shape. And then after I've got my coloring done, I'm going to add some outlines with a Micron pen. Now I did the outline last because the Micron pens will run if you color with them and then do alcohol ink over them. At least they have in the past for me. I don't know if they would be permanent if you heat set them or anything. I have not tried that. So the easiest way for me to do this is just to color the ruby first and then outline it with a black pen. And I'm using, I think it's a 0.03, so it is a really fine line, but you could use whatever you have. So there's my little ruby. I've gone and I've fussy cut it out, and I'm adding it right in the corner here, kind of hiding it behind the trees in the grass, and I think that's just a really fun little addition to this card. So I'm going to start gluing down all of my elements, and I'm using my Brutus Monroe craft glue with the fine tip applicator to apply just a little bit of glue on the back of my trees. I'm going to line it up with my ink blended background since I did tape off the sides and I made that ink blended background to fit perfectly behind the trees. I want to leave some of that white border, so I'm lining it up. I'm going to slip my little rupee in there behind the tree. Again, I used my Brutus Monroe craft glue, and this glue is great because it gives you a little bit of wiggle room before it completely dries, so you can kind of make sure your little elements and embellishments are right where you want them to be before they dry. So my little characters I'm adding with some foam squares from Craft Perfect, and there is a cute little scene, a cute little card, but we need a sentiment. So I am taking some of the sentiments from the stamp set. I'm also taking this little triangle, and I am going to stamp out, is it called the Triforce? Is that the name for it? I forget. Let me know if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the Triforce. So I'm stamping that in some Versamark embossing ink. I did try to get them really close together, and I'm stamping my sentiment right underneath the Triforce. And I'm going to go ahead and emboss this sentiment. I thought it was really fun. And of course it needs to be in gold because the Triforce is in gold. So I'm using some of my Brutus Monroe gilded embossing powder, sprinkling it on there, and then heating it with my Wagner heat tool. And that is my sentiment. I'm just going to cut that out and trim it down into a rectangle size thing, and then put my craft foam squares on the back and pop it up on my background. So that is how I created my sort of legendary forest scene. I think it's really fun. I can't wait to mail it out for someone's their birthday, and that's the card for the day. So thanks for watching. I hope this gives you some inspiration. Keep watching my channel for more Kindred Stamps cards, and I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, share, comment, do all the things. I'll catch you next time. Bye everyone.